so most likely watching this because we had a disaster of a day doing inheritance in class. So what I want to do is kind of go over some of the things we talked about in class, identify, so I'll break this video into parts. You should see in the link down below on YouTube that there are the kind of the links to the different parts of the video. So I'll start with the theory of how we use this, why it's useful, and then we'll get into do some of the coding that we might have done in class, doing the constructor, and then maybe a little bit of stuff past that. So it might be a longer video, but make sure that you could just kind of skip to which part's relevant for you. Let's see. So, I mean, to get started, we can just basically talk about why it might be useful. So we can start with, oh, couldn't quite get my clicker to work here right. So one thing we talked about was, an example was like, if we wanted to code for employees at a business, and the one that we used was talking about like a hospital, which I think is a really good example. So some of the data that we would need in here, we would have like we'd have a name, we'd have maybe an ID number, like things that every single employee, no matter what you're doing in the hospital, you're going to have one of these things. Maybe like a salary. I guess everybody should get paid something. That should say name. It's so excited I can't write. Name, ID, salary. That's probably good enough for now, right? All right, but we said like, okay, there's going to be different types of employees. So this is going to be one of our classes. And then we can also have down here, maybe another employee might be a clerk. And a clerk is going to have just different, let's say clerk over here, and then we'll put doctor over here. And just a clerk and a doctor just have different responsibilities. They both have names, they both have IDs, they both have salaries, but they have other things that are unique just to them, even though they are both employees. And we said, for example, a doctor, we might want to keep track of the number of patients they've seen. Whereas a clerk, we might want to keep track of like the number of files they filed. We could further divide this. We could definitely divide clerk into more things. We could divide doctors into, like we said, surgeons, or maybe like just general practice doctors. Those are like just the doctors that see you and diagnose you. And these might have like surgeries performed, whereas the general practitioner might have, they both have patients. General practitioner might have like, let's say, prescriptions, number of prescriptions they've written. Okay. So what's great about this is that, and we could do this a lot of different ways. We could even divide this, if we want to include like nurses in here, maybe we could have like administrative employees, and then administrative employees over here, and then like healthcare workers over here, and then healthcare divides into doctors and nurses. There's a lot of different ways that we could divide this up, kind of depending on what we need. Okay, so what's great about this is that if we wanted to code an employee class, and we wanted to code a doctor class, a doctor is going to have a name, an ID, and a salary. Every single employee is going to have a name, an ID, and a salary. So we could like write all the code, do the constructors, write all the individual steps, write all the individual variables for each class. But it's kind of like a waste, right? Because we have to do that for doctor, we have to do that for surgeons, we have to do that for general practitioners. So it'd be really like just a big giant nightmare to try and get that done. So what we can do instead is we can say that whenever we write a doctor class, we can just say that it is a part of the employee class. So what we're going to call this is going to be like I don't know how to describe it. Oops. But this is like the base class. Everybody is an employee. Every one of these categories is an employee. So it's like the big one, right? So we call this the superclass. Any one of these is a subclass. So let me say superclass, and let me call these all subclasses. So the way this would look, and maybe I can get up an actual example. Yeah, so I just kind of quickly typed up in coding rooms. I typed up this quick class with the main class, with the employee class. I haven't done anything other than just create some variables and then set up my constructor. I haven't done anything like, this isn't really going to do anything like print anything out, or there's no methods attached. It's just a pure employee class. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to make a doctor class. So Dr. Java is actually the name of a Java program. But we'd say like public class, doctor, And so now what we're going to do here is we want to say that, okay, well, doctor isn't just a class by itself. It actually is an extension. It is going to take stuff that's already written for employee, and we're going to extend it and include it into this class here. So this is where we're going to type in this public class doctor extends employee. And then we'll just kind of do this stuff. Now, what's great about this is that, yeah, a doctor is going to have a salary. A doctor is going to have an ID number, all that. Like I think I had a name in there, right? Name, ID number, salary. They're going to have all that. We don't actually have to code for that. All I really need to do is, well, what do we say we want to have our doctors do? We're just going to have the doctors figure out the number of patients. So I'm just going to do private int, and I'll say like patients. Okay. And now, okay, and yeah, so we don't have to code for those other variables, but we still need to, if I make a new doctor, so if I go into here and I say like, how about this, like doctor mode, oh, doctor, I'm really bad. I do actually speak English. Dr. Moden is going to be equal to a new doctor. I don't know, I think it's just the T and then something R. But when I make this, I still need to identify, well, Dr. Moden, I need to identify the name, the salary, the ID number, and but I now need to also include the patients. So, because, like, even though I am not not directly part of the employee class, I am included in that, right? Because I do have those variables with me. So, for instance, I want to keep track. Let's see. Let's go back to our employee. What's the order here? String, like name, ID, salary. Name, ID, something else. So I might say like Moden. ID is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm not a very good doctor, so I don't get paid a lot. So I need to include all those variables, but I also need to include the surgeries, like the number of patients, excuse me. So I am going to include these in my constructor, and then I'm going to say like I met 5 patients, so I don't get paid so much, only 5. Okay, so I'm going to put a name, ID, salary, patients. Now let's look how we're going to code this in doctor. We go over to doctor. We're going to set up our constructor. We need to say a public doctor. I really don't know what's going on with that. And what was it? So we need to have string n. We need to have int I, int s, and then what was the last one? Int p for patients. Okay. So now here's what we're going to do. Okay, patients is easy. I'm going to set patients, the variable I defined for this class. I'm going to set patients equal to p. And now what I'm going to do is the other variables, I don't have a name included in this class, not directly. I don't have an ID included in this class, not directly. It's all going to be part of my kind of superclass. We're in the subclass. In the superclass, we have all this stuff. So the way that we call this, we said the name of that kind of above class is super. So we're going to call that constructor with this special word here, super. So super is going to call the constructor above. And we can show like other ways that we use super, but if we write it this way, super parentheses, that's going to activate the constructor. And we're just going to send an n, we're going to send an I, and we're going to send an s. Right? That's the name, ID, and salary. Okay, so everything should work here. Let's see. We can do in here. Well, let me just show that this will work. Fingers crossed this works because it didn't work last. Something was going crazy with it last time. We were doing this in class anyways. Take a look here. Oh, it must be the first statement. Oh, I didn't know that. Normally it is the first statement, but I was just going to do it in a different order or two. Yeah, so it's not going to run anything because I haven't actually printed anything out. But, we created a Dr. Moden. We passed in these 4 variables. And I think, we should be looking at saying, okay, we passed in 4 variables for the constructor, but in the doctor class there's only 1. Where do those other variables go? Well, they get sent off to the employee like that employee constructor is already made. We could copy and paste this entire thing into doctor, and then we would kind of be copying and pasting and reusing our code. That's not very sophisticated. This is a much stronger way of doing this, using what's already built in order to get this done. Okay, so now we're going to take it. So hopefully we've kind of constructed our doctor. We've extended the employee class to create the doctor class. And now we want to do, there's going to be 2 more fancy things we're going to try and do here. So let's say, we're going to do this. We're going to make a toString method. You don't really need this override, but normally it's a good practice. I think there is a good reason for doing that. Not something to be super neat. So we could do this in here. So we want to make a public toString method for this employee. And we want to take, let's say, name. Let's call it like names ID is. I have to do. Let's just make it simple. ID number. What we should do here, ID number, and then let's see what else we want to do. ID number, also we want to get ID, and then we also want to get earns. Very invasive here. Give this person's whole thing here. So let's make a couple different people here. So we'll make an employee. My son's watching TV next door. He's my employee, I guess. Bruce. And what is his ID number? He definitely makes no salary. He has a negative salary because he costs me money. So let's do this. We'll do system out print line, and let's just print out Bruce. So let's just kind of make sure this works. If we run this, made a new employee. Apparently can't type, can't spell, can't type. Not good. Yeah, so we'll get Bruce, ID number 1234, earns $0. And then also, so here's the thing, doctor extends employee. So let's see what happens if we type system out print line, and let's print Moden. It makes sense, right? We're going to get Moden, ID number 1234, earns 123. Okay. But, I might want to have some like special stuff with mine, if you're a doctor, maybe you're going to get some special stuff. So what I want to do here is I'm going to make a different, so I have there's a toString method already defined for employee. Doctor, the reason this is working right now is because even though there's not a toString method defined for doctor, there is a toString method defined for employee. So when we run this, when we try and print out Moden, it will find the toString method for employee, and then it will use that format to print out the doctor object. So that's why we get the same exact format here. But so it's great, right? We don't have to rewrite the toString method for doctor. We can just use the one that's already built for employee. However, and we can also do something like, for a doctor, they're going to have some special methods, right? We need to intern, like, let's get the number of patients, right? That might be something that we want to know. So we're just going to return patients. All right, so now this method is defined for a doctor, not for an employee. So let's go back into here. If we try and let's do another one here. We'll use system out print. We'll do Moden dot get, what was it? Get patients. All right, and then we do another parenthesis here. We hit run. And we get 5 here. If I try to run the same thing on system out print line, but instead I put Bruce in here, Bruce is not a doctor. How many patients does he have? Right, we're going to get an error here because it's saying, what are you talking about, get patients for Bruce? Bruce is an employee. Employees don't have patients, so it's going to give us an error there. However, just to be clear, we don't get an error on Moden. So Moden, the doctor class, has this method available so that we can use it. The employee did not, so we can't use it. Simple enough. Let's see here. Last thing we could do. Okay, so we've talked about subclasses using the superclasses methods. We've talked about creating subclass methods that can't be accessed by the superclass because that goes downstream, right? Any methods that are available in the superclass go down to the subclass, but not the other way around. The doctor ones don't go back up to become available for employee. But one thing we could also do, right? Employee has a toString method, but maybe as a doctor, you need a little bit of a fancier toString method. All right, so for a doctor, what we're going to do, actually, so I'm going to overwrite this, and I'm going to write my own toString method that's just for a doctor. You know, to be even fancier, so I want to say like, I want to return, and I'm just going to say doctor to begin with, because of course you need the tag there. And then also what I'm going to do, but you know, I don't want to get rid of everything from the, I could just write my own. I could just write my own. And let's just say doctor, let's see, let's do, well, let's just see this. We can access the superclass, so doctor, the superclass is employee. We can access any of its methods by typing in super dot, and then we can use any methods that are available in that superclass. So we can actually run the toString method here. Let's just see what that's going to do. So now when we print out, Bruce should still print out this. We should see Dr. Moden pops out like that. And that's because in here we have this doctor, we've had this doctor attached to the beginning. Okay, that makes sense. And then we're accessing the superclass here, and then we're using .toString to access the method there. So any methods that are available in the employee class are available within the doctor class to use. And we can access those directly using super. Okay, so the very last little bit, I know this video went on a little bit, but I think it's really, this is super important, and I know we didn't quite hit it all in class, of course. So here's what I've done. We said, if we go back to our original diagram, we had employees, we had doctors, we had clerks. So I went through and I made the clerk class. We said it extends employee, so it's going to get same way that doctor extended employee. We added in filed for like the number of files they filed, and just kind of did the basic constructor. Again, same thing. We are using super to put these into the constructor, and then we are updating filed using F. Okay, so let's pop back to our main class and see how this is going to work. So we have now 3 people included here. We have Bruce. Bruce is an employee. He's just a generic employee. Moden is a doctor, and Sophia is a clerk. So why this is helpful is that we have all this different data stored for these different people. And actually, let me go back. Let me pop into the clerk class for 1 second. And so I just wanted to go in here and add in a different toString method for the clerk. And it's just going to be, you know, same way that doctor was super simple, just adding in that doctor plus super toString. So clerk, super toString, we're accessing the employee toString method, and then using it as well as this little extra piece right here. So we'll go into main. And so we have all these employees. Let's do a quick print here. Okay, so we're going to print out Bruce, Moden, and Sophia. Let's take a run at that. And we'll get the individual runs, right? Individual Bruce, because he's generic. Dr. Moden from the doctor class, clerk Sophia, because she's in the clerk class. Okay, so now here's why this is very useful. Let's say we wanted to store, like, obviously this is not good because we're not storing if we had a bunch of employees, you know, say you're keeping records for a hospital or something, this is not great because all the employees are, you know, we need to store these better. So what we're going to do is, I've already imported the array list, so let's do this. We're going to make an array list. And we'll call it people, and I'm going to fill in those square brackets in just a second. So let's kind of go back in time. Typically, when you define an array list, one of the key limitations is that you can only apply one type of data in there. You can put in strings, you can put in integers, you can put in doubles, but you can't do strings and integers, or you can't do strings and doubles. So in this case, we have employees, we have doctors, and clerks. So it seems like we might not be able to store this in an array list because those are different types of classes. However, they're all traced back to the employee class. So what we can do here in an array list, when we're going to identify the type, we just type in employee. And now suddenly, we can add to people, we can add Moden. Even though Moden is a doctor, Bruce is an employee, and Sophia is a clerk, we can add them all to this array list because they are all part of the employee class. They're just kind of the doctor's a subpart, the clerk is a subpart, so we can actually add all these things. And now when we hit run, just going to do anything, we're going to print. Well, it's not really doing anything, it's just adding them there, but we could do, but it is actually working, right? It's not giving us an error. And I can, maybe if I want to do a little bit more in depth, I can try and do this with like an integer and a double, or maybe you could do that on your own. Try and make an array list of strings and then try and add a double to it. You're going to get an error. When I print out system out print line people, it's going to go through, and so it's going to print everything in the array list, But it's also going to say, it's also going to keep track of the different toString methods. We get Dr. Mode and ID number, blah, 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 earns this, comma, and then we get our employee toString method, and then we get our clerk toString method. The clerk makes a lot more money than the doctor, which must be good. So that's really cool because we can, that's what makes like inheritance really useful, is that we can make all these different, we can make all these little subclasses, but we can still store them all together because they are all a part of the umbrella employee class, which makes this really valuable. So long video, you can hopefully you've skipped through to get to the parts that are most important to you. I'm going to post an assignment to go along with this. Well, I guess along with this task, there might be an assignment related to kind of coding this. So I hope this went through these ideas a little bit more clearly with some examples. I'll include the link to this in the YouTube, and I think that'll be it.